hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from across America and around the world. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you this evening as we look into all things esoteric. I'm joined again by my son, Justin James Garcia, and tonight we're going to continue our examination of chapter by chapter, verse by verse study of the book of Revelation. I do believe we are on chapter 18 or thereabouts. Justin, are you there, son?
Yes, I am. We're going to be doing chapter 15 tonight. Start
Oh,
off with.
chapter 15. Yeah, okay. That's right. We did chapter 14 last week. All right, excellent. Well, anything that you'd like to share? Um, what about the video that Joy did for the upcoming children's book? Quick mention on that.
She did a book just talking about the series. She did a video talking about the book series in general. There is. Yeah, we've been actually went to the park today and we're strolling around with Eliana, just walking sunshine and trying to conceptualize the characters that will be in the book. We did read last week exactly uh, the actual pages of the book. But now we have to get to the graphics and finding the correct illustrator and trying to basically put together the characters and what they look like is a big task coming
Mm-hmm.
from scratch, and I want to try to be accurate. I'm like considering there are a couple angels that appear in the book, a couple of the watchers that come down Genesis 6 and also mentioned in here in Enoch 6 in this chapter that I'm covering in the third book on the Prophecy for Children Enoch series. It talks about the fall of the Watchers and basically how they mated with the daughters of man and gave offspring of giants. So there's going to be a giant, there's angels that come down, and when you think about it, there are all types of mainstream images that will come to your head when you think about a giant, or you think about David and Goliath. We've all seen movies like that probably, or seen children's books of David and Goliath and what the giants could look like. But I want to like really represent something that is accurate. So I'm like digging through the scriptures that I can recall to try to put together a picture of what did the angels really look like, because I believe they took on flesh embodiment. I think they looked like mankind, even, right? Uh, I go down to wonder had fair skin, if they had dark skin, tan skin, black hair, blonde hair, or, all of those different things, because they all have to be put there on the page for the children. Be interesting. It's been a fun time. But yeah, what's going on with you and your children's book?
Well, that one I am going to wait until you are able to establish a hookup with somebody, and once I know that you get yours out. But I've been working on the Holy Spirit book, and that's wrote the introduction and have all of the chapters aligned, and I believe I have everything that I wanted to add to it. So I'm doing the proofreads now, just to make sure that it's where I want it to be and that it explains everything that I wanted to cover. It has some of the material that I had previously written about the Holy Spirit, but of course it's going to be updated, and then it has a lot of new material, and the articles that myself I wrote for Noel Hadley's website, The Unexpected Cosmology, on the Feminine Holy Spirit, and the article that Rob wrote in support of this concept before his unfortunate passing. God bless him. We, miss him and think about him every day. He was even mentioned in the shows that we did last night, which I thought was really good, and so people should go check that out. I was on a panel with some individuals from Brazil, and they were asking a number of questions, but they all spoke about the great impact that Rob had made upon their lives and their studies, and so it was a nice tribute. But anyway, so we'll have his article and also Noel's added to this book, and if I'm able to get Rob, Breath of Yah, and Michael, their study that they did on the show with us about this subject matter, I'll add that as well, and it should be pretty complete. It's like 250 pages, I think, something of that nature. So it's quite thorough, a lot of information to study, and a lot for people to consider. So hopefully a month and a half at most, I believe, if I'm, stay dedicated to it. But you know how it gets sometimes, especially now that you're so busy with so many things. Life can just catch you up and carry you away with so much other, endeavor. So, but I will try to remain focused and get it out as soon as possible. I know a lot of people are excited for it, and so, and I think it's at the time there's a lot of new individuals coming to discernment on this topic. So hopefully I'll be able to support their research with this book.
Definitely a lot of things. Busy.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
Yeah. And then come July, we're gonna have a whole new addition to the family, and so very excited about that as well. God bless Joy and Ezra, and but yeah, you're gonna be doubly, triply busy, and then
We're going to be in the 2 under 2 group, 2 kids. Years. Yeah, busy time.
yeah.
I just think of when I went to basic training, 2008. It seemed like the hardest thing I had ever done. Every day I just tell myself, millions of people have to get through this. But I know I'm not going to be sleeping, but that's okay because I know millions of moms out there, dads have done it before. Be able to get through, and I don't know, it's me looking at Eliana every night, put her to bed. It's one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done in my life. Just look her in the eye, and she giggles at me, and she's like, she's saying the Korean word for dad now. Says, pop, 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 pop. She'll yell at me and call me from across the room, and then she's like, she knows the difference between me and Joy now. She calls Joy Amma. Amma is Korean for mom, and she'll say, Amma, ma. Cutest thing in the world.
So awesome.
So happy.
Yeah.
Your new life. But we have to look out for her. The world is already coming after her. Today we were out eating at a restaurant, and some little boy that was sitting across the table from us, he ended up bringing her a sushi roll and some food from off his table. He's like a little 3-year-old boy. He doesn't even speak properly, He's just was like infatuated with Eliana and was like
Oh.
came over and like touched her arm, and I looked him stern in the eye and I said no. I said no, do not, don't. You know what? Just go. I wanted to like go to his mom and be like, "Can you tell your son to like stay away from us?" And I was like, "Oh, the world that we live in." Imagine when she was a teenager, like all
Oh,
those
no.
stories you hear about dads
Yes.
shotguns waiting on the porch. It's like I just want to keep
Uh,
Ileana at home, like of
right.
course not as a slave or like to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
kept away from anything in
Just
the world,
protected.
but to be protected from what's out there in the
Yeah.
world because there's so much evil. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was really cute.
there is.
She's been
Yeah,
going and
that is so
interacting
cute.
with other kids at like story time at the library, and there's this mom from Mongolia that Joy has met who has two little, not Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan. They have two little Asian babies, but they have blonde hair. Interestingly, they have one
Whoa.
that's a few months younger than Ella, and he was like crawling around playing with Ella. They are so cute. He's like he
Oh.
can barely crawl, so she's like trying to teach him. So I'm getting a glimpse of what she's going to be like with Ezra when Ezra is born. She's going to be the big
Right?
sister.
Yeah, fully. Fully, yeah.
And
That's so
Korean
cute.
big sister is Nuna. So she's Eliana Nuna. Ella Nuna.
Awesome.
That's amazing to watch the children grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and her smile does just light up the room and touch your soul immediately. So, um, I'm fortunate to be able to see all of you every weekend, and it's a great joy. Definitely one of the greatest joys of my life to be able to share time and space with you and Joy and watch you guys interact with Eliana and just being parents and just watching her grow up. Oh, the difference, especially watching that video, the difference from, the time that she was newborn to now. I mean, just in less than a year, and wow, the changes. It's such a miracle. Such a miracle.
It is amazing to think that people can see a child grow, from not being anything to being a full being, like full like functional body that's like there's so many like billions of things going on as her body like forms and grows. It's so intricate. I just can't conceptualize how people think that this amazing process is a product of chaos,
Right.
unguided evolution. It makes no sense. Just the concept of evolution that things mutated throughout time is nonsense. Like, the
It
reproductive
really
system
is.
is so intricate. Like the reproductive system, everything is like so amazingly complicated. There's and it's like irreducibly complex. So you can't like can't
Yes.
just like change one part of the process and everything will go well. Like everything happens like millions and billions of things on the molecular level are occurring to like make a child's body into, she's now 10 months old, and there's just been
Hmm.
trillions of things. Like you can't even count the amount of interactions between different atoms and electrons, and all these things on the like microscopic, on the atomic level even, that
Yes.
how can all of that lead to this? How can that happen without there being a perfect code written? It's
Right.
like people are getting the video and the audio feed from our computers, through the broadcasting software to their computers, and they're like listening and they see the video that we're putting out, and it's like, how do you think that that could occur without there being some like really intricate code to guide that process, right? But like that
Right.
code is
Design.
that code is really simple actually. Like everything,
Mhm.
all of that code is really simple. I think it was Bill Gates that said DNA is more complex than any software program ever written, and
Right.
it's so true. You know, DNA
All
is
of them
really
together.
just
Yeah.
a software, and it
Mhm.
leads to a hardware. It's like a
Mhm.
here we are, like walking hardware, like with a consciousness inside, a spirit inside, flesh vehicles. And
Mhm.
man, the enemy has done a really good job to just sell so many lies to the masses. But yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the bowl judgments. So the 7 bowl judgments. We've made it through 14 chapters already. Had quite
Yeah,
an
that's pretty
extensive
amazing.
amount of study so far. Had like
Mhm.
12 or 14 hours, maybe more, maybe close to 20 hours already of
Yeah.
study. But there's a playlist. You can check that out. And I do want to welcome everybody that's joining in the YouTube live stream. I do see all of your awesome comments. Everybody talking about their children, and also talking a little bit from earlier about the fall of the angel. Yeah, really interesting to see everybody, and I'm looking forward to the study tonight.
Yes, as am I. And we're already half a segment in, so we should begin. And so if you want to go ahead and pick it up, we'll move in.
That sounds good. Well, review did go through Revelation 14, followed Revelation 13, of course, and which followed Revelation 12. So there were big events that occurred in each of those. Revelation 12 with the war in heaven, the serpent going after Israel, whatever happened with what we believe might be the 144,000 that escaped into the wilderness, and also the blood that came out of the serpent's mouth over in Revelation 12. Uh, the war that was made against the saints. So the serpent, the end of Revelation 12, that the serpent went to make war against those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of the Messiah. So after that, Revelation 13, we did see, of course, the big beast came out of the sea. We talked about, of course, the 7 heads, 10 horns, and all of that. And then, of course, you have the little lamb. Talked about was Daniel 8. That spoke about a very similar beast, and both of these beasts that are mentioned here in Revelation 13 saw the image of the beast, mark of the beast. Sorry about that. I had a cough. Last week we talked about Revelation 14 that followed. We saw the 144,000 standing in the heavenly temple in Zion, and of course we saw a proclamations of the 3 angels. We saw a harvest, basically. We saw Babylon is destroyed, and then we saw the Messiah come reap, and then we saw the wrath of God being reaped as well, called the grapes. They were gathered together, and of course, talked about all of that. You see the harpazo and destruction of the grapes there, and now we're kind of like jumping around in time again. I believe. I don't think that this comes after that. I think that John here sees another sign, and this is kind of going back to the timeline that was mentioned, basically with the 7 trumpets and the 7 seals. So we see like the full picture a few different times in a few different ways. And I think that they overlay one another. I think sometimes John will have a vision that kind of inserts itself into the middle of the seals or the trumpets. And now, we're seeing another 7 here, the third 7 with the bowl judgments, and this is the prelude to the bowl judgments. It says, then I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them the wrath of God is complete. And I saw something like a sea of glass mingled with fire, and those who have the victory over the beast, over his image and over his mark, and over the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having harps of God. Okay, well, here, it definitely makes you see that it's apparently after people are here on the sea of glass, mingled with fire. That's the firmament, right?
Yes.
Mingled with fire, you could think the firmament's kind of mingled with stars, sun and the moon. And then, as Daniel 12 says, those who overcome shine like the stars forever. Interesting.
Right.
Like spiritual fire beings. And those who have victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark, and the number of his name, standing on the sea of glass, having harps of God. All right, so I take back what I said. This is clearly after you see that the wrath of God is being poured out, the grapes were gathered, because we did see in Revelation 14 the Messiah with the sickle, and he went and he harvested, right? He harvested the wheat.
Yes.
So here you see on the firmament, see the people who had victory over the beast. So this is clearly after the Antichrist deception. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are your works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, O King of the saints. Who shall not fear you, O Lord, and glorify your name? For you alone are holy. For all nations shall come and worship before you. For your judgments have been manifested. That's very true. All nations will come and worship before him in the millennium. However, that's going to work out. I'm still so interested, in the exact workings of the millennium. I guess all that will be sorted out when it occurs. But apparently, they're still going to be all the nations.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if everyone who was called up into the Sea of Glass, if they are the ones that, those are people that are saved, right?
Right.
They're made into incorruptible bodies, right? When we're take place in the harpazo, God willing. So who is it that's going to be in the nations? That's a question, but you see the 144,000, they could be, but I assume that they're also given incorruptible bodies.
Right.
So, that question remains for me. We know that the nations will be around and they will come and worship before him, and if they don't, they don't get honor. So that's interesting. But moving on, it says, after these things I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven opened. Out of the temple came the 7 angels having the 7 plagues, clothed in pure, bright linen, and having their chests girded with golden bands. All right, so we got the temple up in heaven. This is where the 144,000 were as well. And they got pure, bright linen. Of course, people are going to point out that they're wearing linen, of course, all the Leninites out there. Their chests girded with golden bands. Do you think they're wearing real gold, or do you think that's kind of like signal for light? Fire, maybe?
Could be either or, but it definitely could be gold, because even like the streets are said to be paved with gold in New Jerusalem. So, and the kind of, as far as, where he said, I go now to prepare a place before you, then all the mansions that are in heaven, even the gates are, each molded from a single gem of that particular type. And so the glory of heaven and the sophistication and the as far as the the preciousness of the stones and the quality of the workmanship are going to be of the highest order. So, if something is to be of golden, whether it's a representation of light, there's going to be no holding back to the glory that the Most High will utilize to accomplish His works and to manifest the city. It's going to be beyond what anything that we can conceptualize, even from what is stated in Revelation and 20 and 21. When we get there, of the description of the city and each of the different gates representing one of the different tribes and the different stones that formulate those gates. All right, we'll be right back, everyone, for the next portion.
Your partner. As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. We just found out we will be having a son, and we are excited to grow our family and to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out the children's store at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. And indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve, and eventually reach what they seek, and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past, time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien class and react in this way. That's so desperate for.
All right, welcome back, everybody, and let us continue.
All right. Talking just a little bit question that I had there in verse 6 about the 7 angels, of course. We're writing the children's book, and I want to conceptualize the angels in the proper way. Here it says, had pure bright linen, and their chests were girded with golden bands. And I was thinking of, since they're watchers, I was thinking I was going to put them in like black linen, robes, covered from head to toe. Long, flowy, black linen. It's going to be a picture of them like falling, basically, like free falling heaven to the earth. It'll be interesting. What do you think about that?
I think that's appropriate because if I remember correctly, either in the first book of Adam and Eve or in one of the passages where it talks about the fall of the angels, it does say that they were diminished and made darken like the dark earth, and so I think that's appropriate. And yeah, even the the ghosts and the giants, because they have no part in the salvation, the specters, like the shadow people, they are also dark embodiments, entities that are in opposition of light. And so I think that's appropriate for them. Oh, but I did want to make one other comment about the firmament as far as the sea of glass mingled with fire. That passage always reminds me of like the aurora borealis and how we see the spectrum of like the various rainbow colors and the sapphire throne, that and we know that phenomena is also connected with the sides of the north and the Mount of the Congregation, and it's something that is specific to the high north. And so I think that it's the glory of the Most High that it is the cause for that particular phenomena as well. And so maybe the light cast off the throne, or Yahushua as the light of the world, that light coming through the crystalline firmament and going down the sides of the walls as it spreads out from the portal in the north, and coming down through and cascading downwards, that maybe that's the way that we're able to see a visible witness to his glory, especially those that are in extreme northern latitudes. And so just a possibility, something to consider.
Yeah, of course, that's something that we're all, well, maybe not all of us, but probably most of us here have looked at some P9, P90, P900 pictures of stars and moon, like super high res images.
Right.
I remember when Joy and I were living in 2014, and I would just sit outside with the P900 and follow some of the stars at like 2 or 3 a.m. black, and
Yeah.
the stars like are moving. You have to move your hand to follow stars like very slightly. It's crazy how all of those amazing how the firmament works, But
Right.
man, how many times have you just like stared at the moon and thought, what is it up there? Like, of course we're taught what it is, but us here believe that it's actually
Right.
something that people have stood on before. Just so interesting, Like world, that's up in the firmament. Got these like
Right.
little dents on it. Crazy.
Right. Yeah, and the scriptures speak about the luminaries being nothing more than water mixed with light, and many people have also noticed and been witness to stars that you could see stars through the light of the moon, and that it has some form of transparency, and so something definitely different. And then as you said, when you look at the different planets, the wayward, the wandering stars in the P900, and the geometric shapes and patterns of the light as it formulates and moves and shifts to create those luminous bodies, is definitely, you know, in my mind, not the solidity. And certainly the earth is unique as a foundation and a place made for the habitation of humanity and the animals that dwell upon the land, that it's something completely different. And even the ancients recognized and categorized the earth as something different. They did not equate it to the luminaries and the stars that are in the heavens, but that they separated it, as unique in disposition from that of those particular bodies and objects.
Christine Barbeau said to look up beautiful star images, close-ups. It's something that's really,
Hmm.
really difficult to do. Like all the P900, I know I spend a lot of time taking pictures of lots of different things, and I know that, when you zoom in on a star, like depending on the zoom that you're doing and the focus and the lighting and what mode you're in and your exposure and all the varying things, like you get different images. I don't think any of them are actual clear photos of stars,
Hmm.
and especially because there's actually a filter that comes installed on most cameras, those big like DSLR cameras. There's filters that automatically edit your images as soon as you take them, believe it or not, and they'll apply certain filters. So when you're looking at it, it'll look one way, and when you actually take the picture, and it does a little bit of edits to, I guess, smooth it out or whatever. And there's some ways that you can turn it off, but it was harder than just the press of a button. I didn't ever figure out how to do that. But anyways, I don't think that I ever got like actual clear photos or clear images. But yeah, you do see those geometric shapes that are really interesting. But just seeing the moon itself is something that's really crazy, because you can zoom up on that one and get really clear images. And I've never really owned a good telescope, but maybe that would be interesting to be able to use a telescope to see. But even the images that NASA, of course, sells to the public, all of these, if you look closely, they always say artist rendition or artist rendering. They're all Photoshop images. They do the same
Right.
type of things with filters, and they smooth out what is blurry, and you can never trust the pictures that you see, unfortunately. But it really is up there. The stars really are up there, and they're amazing lights. bright lights, some dim lights. But yeah, that's interesting what you said with the moon. Sometimes people have noticed that you can see stars through the moon. I'm not really sure how that how all that works, but yeah, the concept that there is a firmament up there, uh, whatever it's made of, here it's like a sea of glass. If you cross-reference this verse on Revelation 15:2, it brings up a couple other verses from Revelation 4. You see there's a sea of glass like crystal. And we can go over here and look at what does that mean? The sea of glass, like crystal. Crystal means like crystal, like kind of precious stone. So it's something that's made like a precious stone. And then it also referenced Revelation 21. The construction of its wall was like jasper, and the city was pure gold, like clear glass. So I guess the sea of glass is like that crystal. It's like a crystal, whatever, crystalline structure that separates, as we're told in Genesis, the waters above from the waters below. So there are, waters above the firmament, but I think it's also actual firmament as well. I can't really conceptualize it. Like is
Yeah.
there a really thin piece of crystal, and then the waters are right above it, because we've all seen sonoluminescence, right, where people will actually emit sound waves into water, and there has been
Right.
observations that like star-like lights will show up in the midst of the
Yeah.
water when you
Yeah, that's amazing.
emit a certain frequency or a certain sound wave into the water,
Right.
which is so interesting because we know all the stars, they have unique frequencies that they resonate at as well.
Right.
It's all really interesting to conceptualize
Yeah.
and think, but whatever it is, it's just another one of those amazingly ordained things that just makes you think, I can't believe I was ever an atheist.
Right. Well, we all start somewhere when we're questioning, and for a lot of people, that's the first part of the journey. So, um, but yeah, as far as the firmament, in the book that I wrote on the firmament, the vaulted dome of the earth, I do remember that there was a passage from the Chronicles of Jeremiah where it spoke about how the firmament was like um, 3 to 6 inches thick or something of that nature, and it was indestructible and impenetrable. But that the crystalline structure that it was made of is what is, of course, is referenced by Job as a molten looking glass. And in the process of the word rakia, which is the Hebrew word for the firmament, it means, like a hammered out, um, as far as like the creation of a mirror. So that was an interesting passage in regard to that as well.
Yeah, the really interesting part to me, because the moon is the one that we can really get like a not super clear, but pretty clear images of.
Yeah,
But there are all those like dense. Of course, they say they're craters, right? But
right.
I don't believe they're craters. The asteroids, basically they want you to believe that, every single rock that ever
Right.
hit the moon came from like a perfect perpendicular angle, because they're always
Yeah.
perfectly
Yeah.
round craters, But
Hmm.
that's hard to think. I know there's that one passage that enemy, when he got kicked out of heaven, he like spit at the moon, whatever. That's where
Right.
the dents come from. But I
Hmm.
don't know. Like, I think sometime in the ancient past, a Tower of Babel type episode where they wanted to like pierce through the moon or something. Can't comprehend
Uh,
how that type of thing.
yeah. There's something about that also the Chronicles of Jeremiah, that during the Tower of Babel they did try to break through the firmament in order to wage war with the Most High, and so lots of things to consider, especially when you read the the different accounts that are available.
Yeah, interesting. Lisa mentioned that. Thank you, Tammy and Lisa, for moderating, of course. She
Yes,
said it seems that Raka, like Rakia, that means hammered out or hard or hard surface, is where the English word for rock came from. Cool.
yeah,
Never
interesting.
heard of that one before.
Yeah, very cool.
Etymology is always interesting to back. But all right, we're
Yes.
almost done with chapter 15. We got a couple more
All
verses to
right.
go. Then one of the four living creatures gave to the seven angels 7 golden bowls full of the wrath of God who lives forever and ever. The temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. No one was able to enter the temple till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels did. But I always think it's interesting when you see like a picture of the operations of what's going on in the heavenly realm, in the temple here. Apparently people go in and out of the temple, but at this point, the temple is filled with smoke. And nobody's able to go in or out anymore. I guess this is going to be like a really serious time.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
The wrath of
yeah.
God.
This is. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the culmination of what is the Second World Age, and the climax of all of history leading up into this time. And so, yeah, and the great and terrible day of the Lord, it's been written about so much, and with the destruction that's going to happen, and the wrath. I mean, the wrath of God poured out on the wicked, those not written into the books of life, and even the heavens and the earth are going to be recreated, destroyed, and remanifest. I mean, that's very, very serious.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the cross-reference verses for this verse. I love the blueletterbible.com or
Oh
.org or whatever.
yeah,
You got
yeah,
all these free tools, the interlinear, where you can go and look at the original Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic. I love this cross-reference section as well. Brings out a couple different verses, like in Exodus 40, it says the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord of Yahuwah filled the tabernacle. So yeah. So you see this type of thing has happened, of course, on the temple on earth, but same thing happening in heaven. And it says in 1 Kings 8:10, it came to pass when the priest came out of the holy place that the cloud filled the house of Yahuwah. 2 Chronicles 5:14, so that the priest could not continue ministering because of the cloud, for the glory of Yahuwah filled the house of God. That is an interesting verse. The house filled with a cloud. I want to read a little bit earlier. It said, "It came to pass when the priest came out of the most holy place, for all the priests who were present had sanctified themselves without keeping to their divisions. And the Levites, who were the singers, all those of Asaph and Heman and Jeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, stood at the east end of the altar, clothed with white linen, having cymbals, stringed instruments, and harps, and with them 120 priests sounding with trumpets. Indeed, it came to pass when the trumpeters and singers were as one, make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking Yahuwah. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music and praised Yahuwah, saying, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. The house of Yahuwah was filled with a cloud." That's so similar to what you see here, You see the 144,000, you see all those who've overcome the beast and the image and didn't receive his mark.
Right.
they're singing the song of Moses, and then the same thing kind of happens. Sure. Wonder why that happened, that he would fill the house up with smoke. I'm sure that there's got to be like a precedent that somebody could find. I want to read a couple more verses because I just want to investigate. This psalm was really interesting as well. In Psalm 18, it said, "Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also, and came down with darkness under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and flew. He flew upon the wings of the wind, and made darkness his secret place. His canopy around him was dark waters, and thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness before him his thick clouds passed with hailstones and coals of fire. Yahuwah thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. Hailstones and coals of fire. He sent out his arrows and scattered the foe. Lightnings in abundance, and he vanquished." It's interesting. So you see, like, the smoke, I guess, is like war chariot. Interesting.
Yeah,
And in
it's
Isaiah
awesome.
6 it talks about close the door was shaken by the voice of him who cried out in the house. That would be another one. Interesting reading. Uh, reading all of these interesting
Yes,
references.
right.
Try to find out a little bit of information if this type of thing has happened before. But yeah, apparently it has. And if we want to go back and read the full stories, I'm sure we'll find more about the smoke that filled tabernacle. I guess that's the same thing here. It's like the smoke fills the tabernacle. That comes right after the praising, the victory. There's a celebration, but then I don't know. I guess it is kind of a joyous occasion. I look at it and I'm like, oh, the wrath of God, like, woe to the earth. Like for us, it's like really serious. But for the Most High, this is like, and for the righteous, those who are saved, this is
It
justice.
is finished.
Oh,
Yes,
this
this is
is like,
justice.
this is real justice. This is the
Right,
the
finally.
victory of good, the victory of
Right,
our living God.
right,
That's going to
exactly.
be, it's being accomplished when He pours out His wrath, because wrath,
Yes,
destroying the wickedness that's plagued
yes,
the world. So I mean, I guess
yes,
I just had to kind of change my mind. This is a momentous occasion, like a joyous
absolutely.
occasion. Of course,
Right.
fearful as well for those who don't trust in Him.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It is. It's the culmination, the climax of everything. The finally, because even the saints have asked him how long, Lord, and here it's happening. It's finally all unfolding, and then after the wrath is poured out, then he establishes his forever kingdom. Even though, yes, Satan is loosed again for a little season, but still there's going to be a portion, God willing, those of us that go on and take on glorified embodiment and are restored back to our first estate. Yes, there is going to be again the nations, and even in the book, The Apocalypse of Baruch, it speaks about how there will be women that birth children again, and so there's going to be this other cycle of humanity, and who that is and how that plays out. We're not really given a lot of answer, a lot of detail on that, but there seems to be, and I speculate that it is those that fall a little short, but that aren't so far removed that they aren't given another opportunity. And maybe that opportunity is embodiment into human form, and that there's this other cycle and there's this other opportunity, just as we were given chance during this 7,000 years of this world age, and through this flesh embodiment and our incarnation into this lifetime in this form, that perhaps there's another cycle of that for somebody else, and who that may be. And again, we're not given a whole lot of detail, but there is mention of that in some of the other manuscripts. And we're also doing the study right now in the DRC on for Esdras, and we're going to be getting soon to the part about the millennial kingdom, and it also, I believe, goes into this in a little bit more detail than what is found just in the King James, the Authorized Bible. Oh, well, we are at break. We'll be right back, everyone, for the second hour.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased, as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing. So we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work, and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. We just found out we will be having a son, and we are excited to grow our family and to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out the children's store at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. We are continuing our discussion of Revelation chapter 15, which is very interesting. And I definitely do see that, in the last chapter we talked about how the Son of God, the Son of Man, how he preserves the saints, and that I believe we see that with the 144,000, that the rest of the elect are gathered and protected from this judgment that is going out now. So, very interesting study. Justin?
Yeah, it is interesting. I posed that question a few times of who in the millennium will repopulate. From Ezekiel 41 through 48, that many believe is millennial age and descriptions of the millennial age, that there will be children born during the millennial age.
Mm-hmm.
That talks about people dying, even talks about priests, even some of the priests of the temple, that some of their family members, talks about if their family members die, what exactly the procedure is. So even some of the people that serve in the temple at that time are going to have family members. Not exactly sure how that happens, but that's going to be really cool. It's like another generation of children. Who doesn't want that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Who doesn't want to see the generations? But it'll be interesting. There is a passage in Daniel. It says, I think Daniel 12, one of the latter chapters. Blessed is he who makes it to like the 1335th day, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
It's talking about what I believe. Blessed is he who makes it like to the end of tribulation period. I believe that there are going to be some people who, I don't know, maybe some of the poor people or the natives from around the world in different areas that do escape and run away from Babylon and cry out against Babylon, and against the elitist system and against all of the evils, and that have love in their heart and that endure that time, that tribulation period, and
Mm-hmm.
don't bow their knee to the false Messiah.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know if they're going to ever have heard of the Messiah or if they had accepted the Messiah. If they had accepted the Messiah, I'm assuming that they would, have their part in the harpazo and they would be, called
Right.
up. So, maybe these are people who never had an opportunity. I know people like Pastor Arnold Murray used to teach that in the millennium, everyone who never had the opportunity to hear the gospel would basically like get another opportunity, like you were saying. I don't know if I believe that, just because that that one verse, it's given
Right.
man to live and then die. Like,
Right.
I don't
Right.
know. That's interesting to consider.
Yeah, and I think that is specific to the as far as the second world age, but that if we move into a time of the millennial age when all have been resurrected and some go on to glorified form, if that counts towards that.
Yeah.
But again,
Right, like
we
Lazarus
don't really
died
know.
twice, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting subject, and I know that
Yeah.
that's why it says, and the seventh trumpet mysteries would be revealed, right?
Right.
Some
Right.
mysteries, but it's always interesting to be able to study, to discuss,
Speculate.
and to have an
Yes.
awesome family here. Thank you, everybody,
Yes.
for joining for the study and for sharing in chat. Of course, it's an awesome community of people that really just want to dig deeper. Great to not
Yes.
be alone in that.
Right.
So long. I know you were very alone, right? And it's probably all of
Yeah.
us. Before I
Right.
was an atheist or rebellious atheist. When I came to faith, I tried to go
Mhm.
back to my hometown and tell everybody. They looked at me and they're like, "Aren't you that like wild party kid that like was super atheist and was like, flicking off God and heaven and like
Mm,
cussing and like doing all these bad things? And now you're telling me that you believe in God?" They like didn't even believe me, and I'm like, "No, no, no, this is
right.
I believe it because it's true. Like this is the truth." And like,
Right.
let's talk about it. And they're like, "Nah, man, like let's go hit up this party." And I'm like, no, 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 no. Come on, like let's have the like deep discussion. And unfortunately,
Mhm.
the enemy has made it standard that you don't talk about politics and religion with your family or your
Right.
friends. That's like for
Right.
each person to decide for themselves. Oh, let's listen to the wisdom that's been passed down from the ages. Let's listen to those testimonies. So, yeah, to have a family here, that
Right.
does want that. It's a long
And it's
time coming,
interesting.
right? It's
Yeah,
such a
yeah.
blessing to be able to share that
Really is.
desire with other people. And of course, we all have differing conclusions on different things, but
Hmm.
the truth of the testimony of our Creator and His incarnation into this world, His life, His death, His resurrection. That is the core that ties us together in
Hmm.
faith.
Yes. Because most of the world just has no interest. They're caught up in the worldly things.
Yeah, for sure. Jerry said in the chat, "What a testimony!" Yeah, I feel like we all have a crazy testimony, right? For me,
Hmm.
like wanting to know the truth, step one of that was like unplugging from the churches because I grew up
Yes.
in Georgia in like the
Right.
Bible Belt, and
Oh,
every
yeah.
every corner you see a church. Like
Southern
nowadays, I
Baptists.
think I look at that and I'm like, man, the church is so divided. But back then,
Hmm.
it's just like, oh wow, the church is so like powerful. It's just this like you utensil of the state of government, to enslave people
Hmm.
to follow the law. And like, you think all these like base arguments against faith, and it's like, maybe the Messiah like walked on water because it could have been the Dead Sea, it was like super dense with like salt, so like it was
Yeah.
super buoyant, and you like try to explain everything, and you come to like finally you come to a place that I came to in atheism, and you're like, wow, like all of these ancient religions really do have some credibility to their ancient accounts. They're just histories that are focused on a geometric or a geologic location. Wait, I'm not saying that right. Geographic, geometric, geologic. No, it's from somewhere in the world, a geographic
Right.
location. And each of those religions, a religion is just an institution, and I believe all institutions have been infiltrated at this point. But the sacred manuscript that they could never get rid of because all the followers were still there, that manuscript is what is important, not what's being taught
Yes.
in the pulpits, not what's being taught.
Right.
Like read the manuscript for yourself. That's why, I read the
Ancient
Quran.
witness.
The
Yes.
Quran made me want to hurl. It made me like feel sick inside. Of course, I read through all of those Zechariah Sitchin books, of course, with the Sumerian
Hmm.
mythologies and
Right.
all of those things, the ancient alien documents, everything that you could get your hands on about Egyptology and Egyptian
Hmm.
mythology, of course, the Roman and Greek mythology. That's like taught in schools, like the super popular one. But then
Right.
researching Hinduism, originally I was studying Taoism and Buddhism, and of course, Buddhism rooted me back to Hinduism. And studying that, you really do get a big picture when you study all of these religions. You get a big picture of the history of the world. But what you find when you really put them all together is that the Bible is the key to unlocking the mystery of history. It's the key to unlocking how all of those puzzle pieces fit together, because in each one of those, as I said, every institution has been infiltrated, through translations. A lot of things have been lost, but when you really study, when you, like, we have access to the concordance and interlinear, and we can like speak any language we want to using translations, multiple translations or translation software these days, you can really find the truth of what those manuscripts have to say. And you see basically two world pictures. You see the polytheistic worldview, and then you see the monotheistic worldview. And of course, the ancient root of the monotheistic worldview is in the Melchizedekian priesthood, not just in Israel and through Judah, but even before, with Enoch, and when Abraham went to Salem to visit the high priest Melchizedek there. You follow that priesthood and what they believed, and they actually disagree a lot with what modern, of course, Talmudic Jews believe, which is absolutely in direct contention with what the original prophets actually foretold about, like Isaiah foretold about the crucifixion of the Savior, the sacrifice of the arm of the Lord. And, you see all these things, and the same thing with the Quran. When you read that, you realize, oh, Muhammad actually, he totally twists the words of the prophets, and, he totally just negates what was foretold. The same thing really is as what Talmudic Jews believe. He just doesn't believe in what the original prophets had to say, but we can see what they have to say. But back to the original point, the polytheistic worldview, they're kind of really similar everywhere you go, so it's really easy to believe in a polytheistic worldview, because they really paint a very similar picture wherever you go. That there were these gods, as they call them, that came from outer space, from the heavens, to the earth, and they created and they maintained power and they ruled over mankind, And the story is a little bit different, but you come to find out that there were actually a lot of evils that were done in each of these ancient cultures, of like human sacrifice and things that don't need to be expressed out loud. They did a lot of evil things. But then you study like what is real, and you come to find out there was a leader that was over them. Some call him Apollo or Zeus. And the Bible talks about the same thing. The Bible talks about Satan, who was the leader of these quote unquote gods, right? The fallen angels. And there really were people. There really were angels that came from heaven to the earth, and they really did make war against mankind, and they really did enslave mankind, and they even mated with the daughters of men and had their own race, the Nephilim race. And they did accumulate vast amounts of power over the tribes of people that were here, and they maintain that power even to this day. And so you kind of see it. Okay, for me, rebelling from the church and going to atheism, that was like, I'm rebelling because I want to find the truth, and I don't just believe in the mainstream narrative. Same thing with everything you see on the news today. Like, mainly whatever you see, you like think the opposite, and you're probably right, right? So I kind of study like as a contrarian. So I was studying in the contrary, but come to find out, no, actually, mainstream isn't really the true doctrine of Christ, the true doctrine of the Melchizedekian order. Actually, the mainstream is that Sumerian mythology, the ancient alien concept. And so
and evolution, and that they were
those are kind of like, secondary kind of stupid things that they sell to the people to make them feel deterministic and like purposeless in their lives and easier to control. But if you study the contrary of that polytheism, you find actually the Bible explains every piece of that puzzle of history perfectly and lays it out
In
perfectly.
truth.
Yeah, and of
Yes.
course, not just the 66 books of the modern canon, but you take it back because, of course, as we said, the institutions have all been infiltrated. Right? I never found
Yes.
my home in like a brick and mortar institutional church. And it's because I believe that most, if not all, like everyone that I feel that I've been to has been infiltrated with some type of heretical doctrine. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, of course. I've probably said so many different things that are wrong, right? But
Haven't we all?
they like maintain these lies and stand on lies that have
Yes.
been passed down from the Roman church. And if you just study the history of the Roman church, it's not a righteous, God-fearing, continuation of the first ecclesia or the Melchizedekian priesthood or order.
Mhm.
It's not. It was actually it's an institution that came about because they made war against the true Christians and they wanted to establish
Right.
authority over them. So they did.
Yes.
They established a central authority over all the tribes of the church.
Hmm.
And and that's the mother of all the harlots of the earth, really, all the
Right.
what we call churchianity these days.
Right.
Right? Yeah, I really I digress. I'm sorry, I went on my own rabbit
That's all
trail.
good.
I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make mention of something that Joy is working on because it covers a lot of what you just talked about. And she has been working on a book called the Clementine Homilies. And um, it's like a book of epistles, and it's from the viewpoint of Peter and his travels and his confrontations with Simon the Magus and all of these extra biblical manuscripts which were preserved by the ante-Nicene fathers. But in reviewing and looking at and studying, which I haven't read the entirety of the manuscript, but he does go into and explain who the fallen angels are, who the Greek gods are, and how they're connected to the rebel angels, and that just as you were saying with all of the different ancient cultures in the world, like the Hindu and how they recognize the polytheistic a multiplicity of gods and goddesses and a pantheon of gods and goddesses. Well, these are nothing more than those rebel angels that rebelling were cast down and cast out and exiled from the heavens long ago. And they are legion. They are the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. Satan being the prince of the air, given temporary authority over this world, so much so that he could even offer to Christ the kingdoms of this world if he would just bow to him. And so these are the things that one must understand in order to um, elucidate one's understanding and to make sense of what we are contending with in the world. Because we do see that a lot of the nations accept and do still and are caught up in idolatry, where they are still supporting these ancient mystery religions. And even now, specifically, we have um, a return for so many back to the ancient religions, especially that of Sumeria, because they believe that the Sumerian documents are the most ancient when even the Thracians predate them by 1500 2000 years, and they were Christians and knew of the coming of Christ and his that he would be immaculately conceived, and that the knowledge of his coming and his second advent was passed down even, way before the mythos of the Anunnaki, and they're coming here and they're establishing Eridu, the home in the far away, and trying to make a slave race of the pre-Adamites, as they talk about in their documents. And so um, one must have and understand that Christianity as a faith and as truth preceded all of the deception of what we see as the pantheon of gods and goddesses, and even these gods raping earth women. I mean, if they're supposed to be supernatural and uh, etheric beings, what are they doing raping human women, taking wives of all which they chose, engaging in orgies and drinking blood and eating the flesh of humans, and these kind of abominations. Um, it shows that they are the rebel fallen angels, and that they are still and have been the enemies, the adversaries, which is what Satan means, the adversaries of God and humanity. And they are, even in this day, leading people astray. Revelation 12, that ancient serpent, that old dragon, and how he deceiveth the whole world. This is ongoing. And yeah, the Catholic Church is a large part of that institution, which is deceiving the entirety of the world. And so the next portion, as we see the strong delusion, and as we've been covering and explaining in great detail, and that is, brought forth even in the manuscripts that we're reading in Revelation, is the coming forth of the Antichrist, and how he would take over this beast kingdom, that the world government and the Luciferians, the Freemasons, the secret societies, they will bow, give allegiance to him, wonder at the beast. And, that's why they are excluded and blotted out, because they worship their father, the devil. They take blood oath and give allegiance to him. And because of that, they will have the wrath and the fury of the Most High poured out upon them at the end of days. And so let's continue. We've got one more segment, so maybe we can make it through this chapter.
Right. And I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, "Go and pour out the bowls of the wrath of God on the earth." So the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and a foul and loathsome sore came upon the men who had the mark of the beast, and those who worshipped his image. That's really interesting. A lot of times we try to think like, that verse that says men will seek death and not find it, and we're like,
yes,
I wonder if that's something to do with the mark of the beast. Like that's like a byproduct of technology, and that mindset that we try to explain miraculous things with like carnal possibilities, right? Like this clearly it's just really interesting to me that there's a bowl that's poured upon the earth, and I think that there might still be people on the earth that haven't received the mark of the beast, right? And who haven't worshipped his image. I think that there might be. Of course, we did see the harpazo already occurred. We already saw the 144,000 up in the throne. Maybe, well, I guess it would say then that the bowl was poured out on everyone on the earth, if that was the case, yes. Right? But it makes it clear that there's still a distinction here of individuals that are left on the earth. So people who had the mark of the beast and worshiped his image, whatever this bowl is, it has like really good aim, because it just aims for those people, and I'm sure they're not gathered in just one room or something. They're scattered. So it's miraculous the way the Most High works and operates, and his judgment, of course, is perfect. Next, then the second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it became blood as of a dead man. and every living creature in the sea died. That's dense and really sad.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't really know. Like, if everything in the sea dies, they're gonna be like a recreation. All those things.
Yes. Yes, there is. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And you know how so many people are worried about save the earth, save the creatures, and
Recycling.
yeah, and all that. And yet, there's really no sense worrying about that because the earth is going to be recreated anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll be right back for final segment.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
When Justin and I found out we were having a little girl, we named her Eliana and started dreaming of what life would be like with her, where we would take her, what we would teach her, and of course, what we would read to her. One day we walked around a bookstore looking for books we might want for her and found nothing, so we started brainstorming what exactly we would want. Even from a young age, we wanted her to know and understand the heart of God, and hidden truths that are in ancient biblical manuscripts like the Book of Enoch, and the idea of the Prophecy for Children series was born. Justin got hard to work and praise Yah released the Prophecy for Children series. We are grateful for the support and amazing feedback from others who have been wanting the same for their children. We just found out we will be having a son, and we are excited to grow our family and to keep writing books for our children to share with our truth-seeking family. To order these books today, please check out the children's store at sacredwordpublishing.com.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
But, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 through 10. And yes, the earth, that so many people are worried about the earth and the trees and the global or ice age and the melting and everything, and they're all concerned about save the earth, save the creatures, even so much that they're willing to have people depopulated, that to take it out on humanity, and which is crazy because the elites buy into this, and that this has been an agenda of Satan for so very long. And yet, if you understand and the scriptures, you know that the earth is brought to an end at the end of this age anyways. And so there's no reason to be concerned with or worried about um, the earth, because it's going to be remade in all of its glory, and all of the evil swept away, all of the depleted uranium and all of the genetically modified food crops and all those things which are contrary to nature and the harmony that the Most High established in the natural order. And everything will be reset and made anew, and so we don't have to be concerned. God will take care of all things. Justin?
Yep, just another reason for all of the world to hate us, right? Not recycling and
Yeah, of course, right. Well, I still do what I can, with and caring for and honoring and recognizing the earth as sacred. I'm certainly not littering and throwing stuff out the window or anything, but I'm not concerned with the changes or things that are going to happen, because I know that the Most High will reestablish everything in sanctity once more.
right.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So of course, we've terraformed our land, so to an extent we care. We had all red clay, it's all they left trash all in the yard, in the backyard, like metals and plastics and everything, and we got rid of all of that, and then it was just dead clay, and we had a couple trees removed, and we had them turned into wood chips, and just scattered it on the property. And Joy and I went out yesterday and just dug a shovel, and it went a foot and a half down, and it's all just transformed, and of course we have chickens back there too that are pooping
Yes.
100 times a day. It's just terraformed the land. It's awesome.
Awesome.
Now we have this great soil to be able to grow food in. So to an extent, of course, we care about the earth, but like you said, global warming, things like that, that's not my concern in the least. I really have no concern about it. If I even did believe in it. Anyways, I guess that's a different story. Like you said, it's just another one of those lies to control the masses.
Right.
I feel I've been
carbon taxes.
My family
like
went to the beach. My mom and I and her family all went to the beach every year growing up, to the same little condominiums, and the sea level never rose. Never, and nobody was moving their stuff further and further inland every year.
Right.
It's the same thing every 10 years. They're like the sea levels, in 10 years from now, there's not going to be any more New York coast.
Mm-hmm.
They said that in like the 50s, right? And then they said it again in
Right.
the 60s and the 70s. You know what? When are people just going to realize, oh, I think actually they're full of it?
Right.
A really good point, though. Yeah, the earth and the heavens will be made new. Be interesting because,
Yes.
as we see here in the second bowl judgment, every living creature in the sea dies. So
Right.
that is some apocalyptic stuff
Right.
there. And the
Without a
third
doubt.
angel pours out his bowl on the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters saying, "You are righteous, O Lord, the one who is and who was and who is to be, because you have judged these things. For they have shed the blood of the saints and prophets, and you have given them blood to drink, for it is their just due." And I heard another from the altar saying, "Even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments." That's interesting. There's an angel of the waters, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I guess some people would say that's like Poseidon. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Poseidon was a fallen angel, right? So Poseidon probably just had knowledge
Right.
over
Yeah.
hydraulics or something like that,
Right.
and
Right.
like
Knowledge of the
deceived
sea.
man to think that
Yeah.
he was the angel of the waters. But apparently, there really
Mm-hmm.
is an angel of the waters,
Right.
and yeah, that's really interesting to think about. But wow, there's not going to be any water. I guess
Right.
if you are left behind, here you're probably gonna be thankful for bottled water. Be a good
As
reason to
long
have
as
some
that
stored up
lasts.
bottled water.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess once this happens, you don't really have long, anyways. I'm not sure
Right.
how long do you think this whole sequence of events takes place.
Well, I think it happens quickly, but I do say that the last part of the Greater Tribulation, when Enoch and Elijah are killed, that there's said to be the 42 months, the 3.5 years of the reign of the Antichrist, when but not saying that all the judgments are going to take 3.5 years. Not that. No, I don't believe that at all. I think the great and terrible day of the Lord, it's gonna, all the judgments are going to come very quickly. But it does speak about in the revelation of Saint John the Theologian that the rain is withheld for a very long time, and it could even be for a 3-year period, and that water becomes very scarce. And the whole chemtrail thing that still is ongoing, and that affects the storms and rain patterns. I don't know if it gets very extreme in those times, but certainly it does say that the earth becomes brazen and like iron, because there's no rain for such a very long time. And if that is the case, then of course the crops will also be destroyed. And as far as nourishment, it will only be what is stored up, because the earth will not be giving and bringing forth sustenance, nor water to nourish people's thirst. And it does describe in other manuscripts that they dig down deep into the earth, and as deep as they are digging, that there's no water available, and that everything that is on the surface has been changed into this blood. And I think that, as we saw in some of the other, like the Colburn Bible text, it speaks about the coming of the destroyer, and that when this particular object, which is utilized by the Most High God to bring forth his wrath upon the earth, that there's a red dust that follows and settles upon the land, and that changes the rivers and the oceans and lakes and things like that. It gives that blood, taints it into that reddish color, and so maybe that has something to do with it transforming into this blood red color. But I pray we're not here to be witness, but we're watching it all from above.
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely, in the previous chapter, we saw that everyone was up in the
Yes.
temple in Zion, in the heavenly Zion, right?
Mhm.
So
Hmm.
it's interesting. It says everyone who had victory over the enemy, right? Everyone who had victory over the beast and over his image and over his mark, and the 144,000, they're like on the Temple Mount in New Jerusalem, waiting to come down, to the earth
Hmm.
as the wrath is poured out. So,
Right.
but then again, we're thinking when the first bowl comes, it's like it's poured out on all those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. So I guess it seems like, if you read the first verse over there in Revelation 15, not the first verse, I think it was the second, everyone who didn't get the mark of the beast, worship his image, is already taken up.
Yes.
So I'm still so confused on who's going to be having kids in New Jerusalem. Still so confused. Like, thought
Right.
that maybe there were people that would be left on the earth, would endure through the entire tribulation and make it to see the Messiah's return, and not be destroyed, and they would inhabit the nations. But apparently, if everyone
Yeah.
who
No,
is left
everything
on the
is
earth,
destroyed. Yeah.
everyone,
Everyone dies.
right, they're all
Yeah.
they're all going through the wrath here.
Right.
All right, so yeah, I guess some people are going to be taken up in incorruptible bodies and still be able to have children.
Either that, or there's a new cycle of humanity, and maybe we are the ministering spirits.
Right.
We take on some of the
Angelic duties.
the angelic duties, and so
Yeah,
that's
not
my
sure.
speculation.
Not
Yeah,
sure.
but we don't know for sure.
My mind is always like trying to
Blind.
figure it out, and just like have you ever seen like a ball, like a big bouncy ball, and like
Yeah.
it's like there's this big ball that it's like an exercise ball, but in order to like ease with like labor pains and backaches and stuff, like during
Yes,
pregnancy,
yes.
Joy will like bounce. It's this huge ball, and it's so huge, and it's like when she bounces on it, it like almost hits the floor. Like it's so bouncy looking. That's basically my brain when I'm reading through these prophecies, like trying to figure out all of these little things. My brain is like boing 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 boing.
Right. Well, this is the riddle of the ages, and so this is something that many people have pondered and wondered about so intensely. And we're fortunate that and blessed that we've been able to read and study so much of what has been hidden, as far as the Spirit of God being poured out and so many other manuscripts coming to light for consideration. I do believe that all the books that we compiled into the Great Commission 3, those apocalyptic narratives, they do help one to get a greater sense as to what will happen and occur during these times, and that they add detail to those that are interested in the study of prophecy and the timeline as far as the end of days.
Like all these people, how unfortunate is it that they're born in like the final days? So
Right.
Like there's been so many evil people throughout history, but they don't have to endure this, right? They don't have to endure the wrath being poured out on the earth. But like these people, I guess it makes you recognize how wicked final generation is going to be.
Yes.
The people that receive the mark of the beast, that worship the image of the beast, like these are people that are going to be selling their kids to the beast. They're going to be like,
Right.
yeah, my daughter, she's refusing to worship you, so come and like take her away.
Mm-hmm.
To the people that are going to be betraying their family members, like
Right.
the people that whatever it is, like this, it has to be an extreme wickedness because they're going to be enduring this intense wrath.
Yes.
All right, so then the fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun. Power was given to him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and they blasphemed the name of God who has power over these plagues, and they did not repent and give glory. Yeah, and I guess it doesn't matter if they repent, because everyone who accepts the mark of the beast or worships his image are already doomed.
Excluded. Yeah, they're already doomed, right?
But I guess this tells you why they're doomed. They don't have any repentance.
Right.
They're like beings, the children of perdition. Yeah, the son of perdition is their leader, and then they're the literal children of perdition.
Yes.
So, and the fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and his kingdom became full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues because of the pain. They blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and did not repent of their deeds. Again, you see, they're not repenting. These are all like, you see a lot of those apocalyptic movies, right? Like the sun gets so hot that they like have to walk around with these like fire suits or whatever, and they're gonna be living through that. I don't know how long it's gonna be, that's gonna happen. Like maybe a few days, maybe it'll for later on, but then this darkness is poured out.
Yes.
That's interesting.
They're dealing with these grievous sores. And it reminds me that, Pharaoh, he was told by Janus and Jambres to bathe in the blood of innocent babes, in the children, the blood of the Hebrew boys. And, to go even that far to ease your pain, that's further abomination. That, in my opinion, is just going to make it worse. You're just going to get more judgment from the Most High, but they don't see it that way. So
intense. Before, wasn't there a point where the sun and the moon were darkened already? So I guess maybe they have like an artificial sun or something up. Like they're gonna lose electricity or something. Like just gonna be dark on the Earth. Or do you think the sun and the moon were still like kind of lit up in the sky, or was that just like one event, like one solar or lunar eclipse that happened at the same time or something?
I think it's probably a sign indicative of a change in the heavens, and that there will be an alteration which is undeniable, and that it will serve as an indicator for where we are as far as those times and those days, and that it will be undeniable for those that are living when they see it, and that the sign continues in some manner, that a shift in the dynamics of the creation and the way that the luminaries are coming forth, the way that maybe even the days are unfolding. Uh, we don't know exactly what causes, but I do believe that there's a shift that is noticeable and ongoing for whatever that time period is. Because like the Apocalypse of Thomas speaks about the wrath of God being poured out over a week of time. And then most of the manuscripts describe the great and terrible day of the Lord as being unfolding on the last day. But these seven judgments poured out, do they represent a portion of time? But no matter what, the last 3.5 years of the reign of the Antichrist, it does represent the Great Tribulation period, the 42 months that Daniel speaks about. So I don't think it will be any longer than that. But
This has got to be
that's
like towards
still
the
a
end
long
of that,
time.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that
Because
this is
this is
towards the end.
after. I believe the church is
Right.
going to be here for that, right? Like people are going to be here, like deciding, do I want to follow the Antichrist or not? Do I want to buy and
Hmm.
sell? Should I get the mark of the beast, or
Right.
should I like listen
Yes.
to those conspiracy
Leading up
theorists that are
into
telling
that,
me not to
yes.
do that?
Right,
Like
exactly,
it,
yes.
and then so we're at the point now, I guess, towards the very end where those people have,
Right.
everyone's made their decision. So
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
that's interesting that it would be a week. Interesting. So let's
Hmm.
continue. I think we just got like 4 or 5
Yes,
minutes
we're
left.
almost
Let's
there.
get the.
Yep, let's
Then
do
the
it.
sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, so that the way of the kings from the east might be prepared. Everyone is always quoting this. Like for the past 10 years now, I've seen
Right.
articles. There's like
Hmm.
Euphrates is drying up. It's preparing for the way of the kings of the east. But like this is during the
Right,
bowl judgments. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that would be really terrible if that was if this was being fulfilled and we're still here on the earth. That would not be a good thing.
Yes, right. Not a good thing.
And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet. That this is one that always I look back to and I think it's really interesting. You see the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet, like three different kingdoms, right? Three different unclean spirits. It's kind of like an unholy trinity, is what people call it. But these are like three different
Yes.
beasts on the earth. So one of these is part of the kings from the east, right? And the kings from the east
Hmm.
they're gonna come marching with this huge army and make war
Yes.
against who? Like who is that? Is that the dragon? Like is the dragon China and communism and like one, the European order and then the other one like Israel, like false Israel, synagogue of
Right.
Satan,
Yeah.
like the false prophet
Yes.
or the Catholic Church or something
Right.
like that. That's interesting
Hmm.
to consider. It says, "For they are spirits of demons performing signs which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of God
Yes.
Almighty. Behold, I am coming
Right.
as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And they gather them together to the place called in Hebrew Armageddon." So I know that there is an Armageddon that occurs after the millennium,
Right.
right? But then this one, I believe, is before the millennium,
Right. And it's against the coming of Messiah.
right?
And so in some way they have them convinced. Maybe they declare him, oh well, he's the false, the ascended master or whatever, when he's the true Messiah coming. But they will turn it around at that time as well. And so in some way they're going to prepare for and try to wage war with and against him. Seems like it,
Yeah, that's a really
anyways.
good point. All right, so we're at the seventh bowl. Then the seventh angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple from heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were noises and thundering and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. So, this is something that we always point out. This same thing happens at the seventh seal, the seventh trumpet,
Yes.
and now in the seventh bowl. So this is like clearly. Um, Towards the very end, right? And
Yes.
now the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and the great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And great hail from heaven fell upon men, each hailstone about the weight of a talent. Man, that doesn't sound too good.
No. Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone, for joining us. Love you, son.
All right,
Be
love you.
blessed, everyone. Good
Bye.
night, all.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.